we do a jargon of the day every day, Shelley, where we take a term and we try to demystify it a little bit here. And our term today was ERISA, just so that we would be ready to have this conversation with you, because there's a lot of misunderstanding even in the autism community, but especially outside the autism community about, I've had people here in California say to me, I thought you were done with that. We passed that insurance reform for you. Isn't everybody insured now? And then I have to get into a discussion with people about ERISA. So, and people are asking us, when is this going to change? What would it take for everyone to have access to coverage, not just the people that are covered by state laws?
Right. So that is the $3 trillion question. So, what does it take? I mean, you would have asked me 7 years ago if we would still be working this hard 7 years later to try to get appropriate medical care coverage for people with autism. I just would have looked at you like you were crazy. I just can't believe it's taking so long. And yet we've made a significant amount of progress. Like I said, 6 days is nothing to sneeze at. That's a huge accomplishment. What typically has to happen in order for the federal government to take any sort of action, and in order for ERISA regulations to be changed, that's what would have to happen. It would have to change at the federal level. But what they always want to see is see some momentum in the states. Well, obviously we have that momentum in the states. Now we, at some point in the future, are hoping that we'll be able to flip the switch and be able to work on it at a federal level. I'm not sure exactly when that'll happen, but all of this work in the states has been helping us build a case to be able to make those changes with the federal government. ERISA changes don't come along very often. With regard to healthcare coverage, it has to be something that needs to be taken care of uniformly. So some examples of ERISA legislation that has passed previously are like when you and I were having our children, it was standard practice to do the drive-through delivery method where you have the child and then they put you in the car and send you on your way. and you don't stay in the hospital for any length of time. And groups got together and passed that state by state and then went back and changed the law at the federal level saying, moms might need to stay in the hospital for a little while after they have a baby, or provide coverage for specific issues with regard to breast cancer. So it has changed a little bit here and there over the years, and we're hoping that all of this momentum will eventually change at the federal level. So what does that mean that doesn't mean anything for somebody who's watching this. So can you guys put up a little pie chart that I sent to you, the pretty little pie chart? Whenever I'm having a conversation with somebody, I'll say, what kind of healthcare coverage do you have? And the response almost always is, well, I have Blue Cross Blue Shield, or I have, Cigna, or I have United Healthcare. They cite what the company is, and they don't know, and I didn't know this either until we started working on this project, that your healthcare insurance is determined based on how that healthcare is regulated and what type of job you hold. So if you work for, some people have individual coverage because they've just purchased individual policies. Some people work for a small company. Some people with less than 50 employees. Some people work for a larger state-regulated company with 50 or more employees. Some people work for a huge conglomerate company, which might operate in several different states. Typically, those are federally regulated. So companies like Lowe's or Walmart or McDonald's, big, huge companies like that are what fall under the ERISA legislation, under the federal legislation. So even if this bill has passed in the state level, and the scenario that we have now is we may have two families living with autism 5 doors down from each other. And one child's parent works for a company that's state regulated, and they have access to get all of the therapy that their child needs to do better. And then we have another family that works for Exxon and that doesn't have coverage. And then they are not able to get the same level or quality of care because they can't afford it. They have to pay out of pocket for it, and they can't get reimbursed for their expenses through insurance. And at some point, we believe that they're going to have to step in and even out that disparity and end that discriminatory practice. And the reason I wanted you to look at the pie chart is because it shows all the different ways people access health insurance coverage, whether it's, again, individual, small, large business, federally regulated healthcare, whether you have it through the military or you have it as a federal employee or a state employee, or you're uninsured or you're on Medicaid. There's so many different ways, and that's why we have to work as hard as we can and have everyone working together, because we're going to have to continue to pull each other up the mountain. Once we get it accomplished in a state, we have to go back and try to do a little more and try to do a little more, try to handle things at the federal level. We hear a lot of times, for example, when we're trying to help our military families pass this legislation, people will say to me, as the grassroots person, they'll write me back and they'll say, well, I don't need to do this because I'm not in the military. Well, all need to help our military families. We need to help them obtain the coverage that's necessary. They're making a tremendous sacrifice for our country. But outside of that, we just need to help. We need to help our brothers. We need to all help each other. I mean, when I don't have ERISA-based legislation, and even if I was just average Joe citizen, I would feel compelled to make sure that my neighbor down the block had the opportunity to have the same kind of access to health insurance coverage that I have.